Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Arcane Alienist. Glad you're with me today. It's been a few weeks. I've been kind of busy and haven't had really time to sit down and record. I've got a call from Carl about my Carl Rodriguez, the GMologist Presents. I'll put a link to his stuff in the show description. Anyway, it's about the just feedback on the Black Sword Hack solo role playing game. I sort of finished the first round of that, and particularly about the map. So I'm going to try to share the map in the art here. And but well, let me before I get into that, let's just play Carl's call.
Hey BJ, I just wanted to comment about your Black Hack solo play. I've been listening through it. I think I'm on number 4 right now, and I've been wanting to leave a message from before or earlier. But I really enjoyed even the world building aspect of it, and I'd love to see that map, the map of that world. I wonder if you've drawn it out or at least sketched it out. Sounds like a really cool way to set up a world and maybe a homebrew. And I'm really enjoying the narrative and the story and how it's going. So I can't wait to see what happens next. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, Carl, thank you for the call and the feedback. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you've by now managed to listen to the finale. That was a bit of a longer episode, but we got it out and got it finished. So what I've done, I'd kind of had described before how I'd use sort of some dice just to generally say, okay, what's in the middle of the map, and then what's in every cardinal direction. Well, not just the cardinal direction, but the all directions. Um, and where I got nothing, I just left it blank. But some of the sort of stock styles of fantasy tropes, different types of lands that come in the Black Sword Act that this would just use. I put them on the map, and then I kind of came up with some different names so I could start fleshing them out and making them uniquely my own. So these are sort of stock sorts of things you find in sword and sorcery fantasy, but they're not. This is kind of a somewhat procedurally generated, somewhat my own kind of creativity filling in the blanks world that we've created, and it's not the whole world; it's just a region, but it's a region that I think will work for our purposes. And so what I've done now, since I kind of had in my head where those things were in the general directions, I went to Incarnate, which is a map making online map making platform. You can have a free account with some limited resources. I haven't paid for the full upgrade where you can get a lot more fancy resources. But these I've done a few maps for homebrew campaigns in the past with Incarnate, and they work for my purposes. So I'm going to put that on the art for this particular episode. So hopefully that will allow people to click on it, enlarge it, and look at it and see what we've got going on there. But I will describe it real briefly before we get into the other topic of the show today. So hold on, let me grab the map, and I will be right back. Okay, so if you look at the world itself, I don't have a name for it, um, or even this region of the world. Haven't got that far, and so you'll see on the map there's some cities where I've put some cities, and I haven't even named the cities because I haven't visited them in adventure, but I kind of get a sense of where they are. But if you look in the very middle of the map, you'll see the free cities of Ilthoria. In the middle, there's this big mountain, and the city of Blutjarn. And this is the center of this league of free mercantile cities. Uh, this red iron that is mined by the dwarves that live underneath the mountain are then traded with this order of metallurgists and smiths that founded the city, and they're the only ones the dwarves will talk to. They're the only ones that are allowed to visit the dwarves. But that featured in the kind of the end of the last story in the this uh, piece of chaotic protoplasm uh, is contained and bound and trapped in a red iron vessel. And so the iron itself makes great weapons and great armor and great tools and things like that, but it also has some latent magical abilities. So it's also favored by sorcerers and their ilk who know how to use it for magic. But it has other applications as well. So I guess you could think of it as the adamantium or the vibranium of this setting. For those of you that are Marvel fans. Anyway, so you see Blot Yarn in the middle. It's the capital of the Free Cities, and then there's sort of a major city all along the perimeter. There's some mountains to the north, to the west. You get into some desert on the other side of a pass in the mountains, and then there's coast in the rest of the directions in the other direction. So you see three, one, two, three, four, five, seven more. So there are 8 cities. Blot Yarn's in the middle. Um, and then if you look kind of to the slightly to the southeast, you'll see Ixark at the down on the coast. And this is the city where our initial story is set, and that is on the border of the empire of Theodora, which is um, kind of a desert region. And so the desert region is separated from a more, I guess, verdant part of the world by these mountains. To the southeast, you see the Sea of Gold, which I had not named until I made the mountain. But here is you see an archipelago called the Halo. I have not really explored much about that uh, culture, other than I think I had randomly arrived that it was uh, itself was divided and it is neutral in terms of law and chaos. And there's some division there, but is I don't know what else is going on down there. I haven't gotten that far. If you continue on the southern part of the map, you see you get over into some other another piece of land. This is Holy Kadan, which is a theocracy. It is favorable to the law, but it is also politically divided. There's some sort of schism going on there. Um, and then within that, we have Diemer, the city of sages, which I had previously mentioned in the early part of the story that they have this vast library and um, archives of human knowledge, and it is sort of closed to the world outside. And these monks there maintain knowledge. You can go and visit and ask them to find information for you for a donation. And even though it is located in the same geographical area that I called Holy Kadon, it's an independent city. I don't know. I haven't decided if there's a border that I need to draw in there, or if it just sort of sits sort of as its own district, and everybody just respects the fact that even though it's located within Holy Kadon, it is not part of Holy Kadon. So I guess sort of like Washington D.C. is not part of Maryland or Virginia, even though it kind of sits right there, or maybe the Vatican is not actually part of Italy or of Rome, even though it is surrounded by it. But same kind of thing. So I don't know what these other cities are named, but certainly these ones in the center part are part of the free cities, and these two that I've located in Kadan are somehow related to. Maybe these are the two outposts of the schism, one for the more traditional and one for the whatever the new faction is. To the northwest, there you see the Uber Isles in the Uber Sea. This is where Dolan and his brother come from, and these are kind of a blending of probably kind of somewhat Nordic, somewhat Gaelic, or Pict-like people here on these islands. And then keep going around the clock. If you look straight north from the Free Cities, you see the Kabar tribes. These are supposed to be sort of a horde-like, nomadic people. And again, they're favorable to law, um, not of law, but favorable towards law, as are the Ober Isles. So these are people who are opposed, not inclined to chaos. They're not just down for overly complex or you know uh, cities that kind of advanced city like dwelling that would be more squarely in the camp of law in a sword and sorcery setting. And then you've got mountains that are unexplored. There are probably some other areas off the map that we maybe get to at some point or there, but there it is. I kind of put that in a Carnet and sort of carved out some seas and some islands and territory just to kind of match what was in my head once I had uh, randomly rolled that. So we'll see if I get back and do some more solo role playing where the adventures take us. We've got place for city based adventures, wilderness based adventures, ocean based and sea based adventures. Um, so we'll see what happens over time. Anyway, Carl, thank you for the call. You guys, let me know what you think of the map. If for some reason you can't just look at the thumbnail or the cover art for the episode, let me know and I'll try to figure out another way to make this uh, get this up in ways that the people who listen to the show are able to to see it in more detail. And who knows? I may put this into the yeah. I should put this into the APA, the Anchorite APA coming up next, along with my next installment of the story that's going to go in print format. All right. Again, Carl, thank you for the call. And now we'll move on to the other topic for today. So I got a new game here. This is called Black Powder and Brimstone by Benjamin Tobit. I believe that's how you say his name. Tobit or Tobit. Tobitt. This is a board compatible game. Although once I got, and that's why I got it. It's sort of a well, Black Powder and Brimstone. It's more of a you know when I just looked at the cover, I was thinking sort of classic Warhammer Fantasy. When I saw sort of the artwork and the pitch, more compatible, but it looks like it's also incorporated a good number of things from Blades in the Dark. So it's got some of the things I think people like about Blades in the Dark and Powered by the Apocalypse as well. Although the mechanics are still primarily based in the Borg engine. So this is a pretty cool game. I don't know. Of course, if I played it, I'd want to play it as written, but it does complicate things a little more. Than one of the things I appreciate about Borg is sort of the simplicity that this got a few basic rules and it just kind of goes quickly. But some people might argue that that's a bit of a shortcoming. So here's some extra rules. I'm going to go through this in as much detail as I can without spoiling and without making the episode go overly long. Um, this is published by Free League and is presented as compatible with Mortborg, but I think you'll see some things that if you're familiar with Blades in the Dark, are also in there. So, in the darkness, a bell tolls. Uh, the Vaterlander Empire is being torn apart by war as the Orthodoxy and the Puritans of the Church of Light battle for supremacy. The Puritans seek to destroy the old church, and the Orthodox seeks to maintain their control. So this is, you're in a something remnant, a setting reminiscent of Europe during a lot of the religious conflicts that came after the Reformation between the Catholic Church and other Protestants. There's a Martin Luther like figure. It's not in the current setting, but in the recent history of this setting that is part and parcel to this schism. Um, Although obviously Martin Luther wasn't a Puritan, so you also get some you know time skip forward relatively to what we think of. I also think when I think of Solomon Kane, the Solomon Kane stories by Robert E. Howard, this seems like there's some of that in here as well. Um, anyway, you've got a map of this region, and unlike Mort Borg, this is not just sort of this isolated continent with no reference to the rest of the world. It is clear that there are other parts of the world, and this is just one region which is being torn apart by this religious conflict. Um, uh, and so there's the traditional holy city of purity, which is the capital of the empire, and then there are other cities on the map, and it's got a map, and it gives you a little bit of information about each location. So the city of Deliverance, which is the major port, is also the sort of the capital city of the Puritans, but also has a lot of the stuff you would expect in a port city with vices and things going on underground. Although on the surface, the Puritans are currently burning heretics in the square on a pretty regular basis. Um, there's an abandoned city called Dresden. I don't know if that's supposed to be an homage to the Dresden Files or just taking dread and turning it into a. This is an abandoned city, kind of in the middle of the region that is supposedly full of lost holy relics, and so you can have adventurers from either side, either as adventurers, treasure seekers, or if you're acting as an agent for any of the factions to try to go in there and pull out holy relics. Supposedly, what had happened is um, a bunch of holy warriors went in there to try to clear it out and fell to the evil and chaos that is taking over the city. Um, it's the home of the Black Library, and I think that might actually be a call out to to Warhammer with the Black Library. Uh, was the pride and joy of Count Marius the Seventh, said to contain books and scrolls from all over the world. So there's this vast amount of knowledge as well as holy relics from these slain holy warriors who had gone in. I mean, actual that had supposedly been blessed by the 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 leaders of the church. Um, there's some note on kind of what it's like in the countryside with these sort of small uh, towns that are live in fear of what's going on in the area. The deep forests uh, are said to be haunted, filled with monsters, but also rumors that somewhere deep in the forest there's some sort of verdant grove that is pure and been protected from everything, where it's peaceful and healthy and thriving. But no one that's ever gone looking for it obviously has ever come back. There's a city of Purity, as I mentioned, which is the capital of the empire and the seat of the headquarters or the main seat of the church. Um, and then there's Lost Man's Mire. So there's also a plague that is it comes up from time to time, and it seems to create sort of some undead and uh, sort of misshapen, warped mutants as well. Or maybe those things are separate. I haven't. Anyway, Um, anyway, there's this swamp. There's a plague land, and then there's this swamp that's kind of the only thing separating that plague land from everyone else. So you guess you could go into the swamp and encounter various monsters there, including things that are the staggering pox, victims of the staggering pox. That's what it's called. Um, so there's some sort of allusions to the Black Death and to other diseases. Um, the Holy Empire of the Sanguine Church is the Orthodox uh, religious faction, and then there's the Holy Confederacy of the Puritan Church, which is this Reformed faction, and they have now come to blows. It mentions that the person who started this sort of uh, schism uh, was really about peace and tolerance, and it saw that he felt the church is very much. It's the man's name is Luther Martin. Obviously, it's an it's an homage to Martin Luther, but saw that there was corruption in the church, people not like again indulgences to wealthy people, so that they didn't have to make up for their wrongdoings or live a pious life. They could just buy their way into heaven. Um, but upon his death, this separatist group or these Puritans sort of became heretics. Like I think we tend to think of Puritans more later in history, burning witches at the stake and things like that. And there are free companies of mercenaries roaming about. Some of from that have been sent in. The idea is you've got foreign powers funding both sides of this conflict, trying to come out ahead. Uh, and source, there are all kinds of mercenary companies. There are particularly the Orthodox Church have the Brothers of Iron. The Puritans have the Golden Hounds. These are led by uh, um, the Orthodox, the Brothers of Iron, led by Franz Colt, a ruthless adventurer who would like to be a king, and the Puritans have the Golden Hounds, led by King Carl Gustaf himself, who was a king from somewhere else. And then there are other mercenary gangs. There's rules in here for starting your own mercenary company or your own free company. I mean, there's the Inquisition, which is supposedly not allied with either church because they're mostly concerned about witchcraft and demons and things like that. Uh, there are demons loose in the land, and then there are the mutants created by the staggering pox. Uh, Notice the winters are getting colder, so it has a little bit about how you could bring cold in as a you know in a snowstorm, having to test for con and take cold damage. Um, Notes on constant war and the need for adventurers to avoid getting sucked in, conscripted or dragooned into war unless that's what they want, of course. And then stars from the outer gods. So stars will periodically fall, and supposedly that is sort of the way that this the church began. There is a sort of a messianic figure that they talk about here who was sacrificed. At the more not so much crucified. Well, it's sort of half crucified and half sacrificed in the arena um, in this story. Uh, but then within a generation, the empire had come to worship this prophet as a representative of the divine. Uh, the most holy church in the year 200, the red calendar. Yeah. Anyway, I won't bore you with reading all. It's got some really cool artwork in it. So that's the setting. Again, like most Morkborg settings, it gives you a default Morkborg based games. It gives you a default setting, and this is pretty much kind of a dark, grim, uh, you know, Europe or parts of Europe during religious schism with, of course, witchcraft and demons and things like that being real. And there's some Lovecraftian aspects as well with things falling from the stars. The rules are basically Morkborg, the same for ability scores: strength, agility, presence, and toughness. You're rolling against your uh, stat, trying to beat a 12. It does give a scale in which where the game master can make things easier or harder, um, which is in Morkborg, but this gives you a little more explicitly what a 6 versus an 8 versus a 10. Like a 12 is kind of a skilled action in a stressful moment. That's the default. But say 14, difficult but not possible. 18 should not be possible. Of course, heroic characters can do the impossible, can't they? Um, 10, a skilled action but usually possible. 8, routine but failure will cause drama. 6, simple but failure will be interesting. So it gives the game master some anchor points on how to adjust. And here's where we see our first, what I think comes from Blades in the Dark: position and impact. So when you're trying to do something, that you can set what position the person is in. Are they in a shaky position, a risky position, or a dire position? And then what would the impact of um, success or failure be? Of success be strong impact, they went better than you expected. A fair impact, you got what you wanted, and weak, not exactly what you hoped. So position determines the outcome of failure. Impact determines the outcomes of success. That I believe that comes from Blades in the Dark. There's some guidelines on negotiations. At the start of the negotiation, the GM established an NPC's disposition as being hostile, indifferent, or positive, and there are some rules on how to do that. That's not in Morkborg. Um, the combat rules are mostly Morkborg, except that it's not just D6 initiative, side-based initiative. It's all players roll a D6 plus their agility to determine their combat order. NPCs just roll a flat D6. So it's not quite the same. It's got a few more um, suggestions of what they call advanced combat rules for using stealth, morale. Of course, morale is part of regular Mortborg. Um, what happens if somebody gets caught on fire? Some ways to adjust difficulty for cover and or for height if you got the high ground, like you're again. There's black powder in this, so if you say you're shooting a musket from a higher position and have a clear bead on somebody, it tells you how to give people an advantage on that. Uh, Attacks of opportunity are part of this, unless you use a disengage action. So here's some 5e stuff kind of creeping in as well. Notes on being prone, grappling, and stunning. There's some attacks, mounted combat, which is pretty simple. All attacks are made at DR 14 unless you have a horse master feat. So there are feats. The character creation is a little more complex. I'll get into that in a minute. Defending from horseback. It does have a nice chase scene. This is a really cool thing that I would probably incorporate it even to regular Morkborg. Um, um, you're just making an agility chest. And the idea, though, here, what this game is doing is it is not all rolls are player facing like in regular Morkborg. So here you've got, say, the NPC also rolling, um, just but you're rolling a d6 and adding your agility. So if you're trying to chase an NPC, for example, you start one. They've got it actually graphed out in little boxes, but you start one step behind them more or less. So you roll a d6 and add your agility. The NPC rolls a d6, and if you roll once you roll higher than them, you overtake them. So depending on how the roll goes, it may take you a few rounds to overtake them. And it talks about ways that you could try to trip, like make an attack to trip the fleeing target, or the fleeing target can try to do things to you know knock tables over or create obstacles for you to cause you to fall behind. So it's a pretty neat little like that is a probably a rule you could crib In fact, I'll read this in a little more detail because you could crib this anywhere else. Yeah, so you both characters are at 1 plus movement slots from each other. Um, so you may be a little farther apart. Uh, each character then rolls d6 agility. Whoever has the highest number moves 2 slots instead of one. Okay, so it's not that you just have to roll higher. You have to figure out first of all how many kind of steps or spots or slots you are behind the person you're chasing. But whoever rolls higher moves two instead of one. So there's this constant forward motion. Um, when both characters are in the same spot, the chase is over. So you can catch up to them. If the character is mounted and the other is not, the mounted character gets a +2 advantage on their test, so +2 bonus. Um, Pursuers can try to impede their quarry by aiming at their legs, for example, but a ranged attack is presence DR 13, so the difficulty goes up a little bit from a regular DR 12. The quarry may impede the pursuer by turning over tables, creating other obstacles. This gives the pursuer a -1 to their agility test, so the D6 roll. So neat little way of doing it. Of course, in a D20 based game, you don't have to use a D6. You could just do okay. We're going to make a dexterity check, but this is a neat way of doing it, I think. Hit points. Again, as with all board, at 0. Once you lose all your hit points, you're broken. Here, you make a toughness test and you fail, you die. Uh, if you don't die, then you roll a d6 to see what happens. If you fall unconscious, you roll on have a table of wounds called wicked wounds, or you're you know bleeding out unless someone comes to aid within d6 minutes. There's rules for infections, rules for resting and recuperation, um, potions and medicine kits. And of course, the wounds table goes everything from a scar to a broken bone to losing an eye to getting an arm or leg chopped off. Um, there's the Devil's Luck, which I think is similar to Omens in um, Morkborg. Uh, so, you know, something dark watches you from the shadows. All characters receive 3 Devil's Lucks at dawn. The player characters may not have more than 3 at a time. 1 Devil's Luck may be used to lower the DR of a roll, as a kind of like use Omens in Morkborg, or activate a dark power to deal maximum damage, neutralize a crit or fumble. So yes, this is very similar to Morkborg. Um, and activating a dark power. If you have a dark power, uh, not everybody has one. These are more on a 1 you gain a mutation. You roll a d6, and on a 1 you gain a mutation that will mark you as an outsider. Some of these changes can be hidden or painfully removed, but not all of them. So you roll a d20. You've got things like small bony horns protrude from your forehead. Your teeth elongate into, like canines. Your spine grows spikes that erupt from your back. Uh, your nose hardens into a bone-like spike. there's some mutations. Um, there's a cost to these dark powers, right? Um, natural 20 rolls for natural 20s and natural ones. So on a natural 20 defense roll, the player gets free of their attacker. The natural 20 on an attack roll either double the damage, um, which reduces their armor, or the player can get a special crit effect from the table below. And it depends on what you're attacking with, whether it's close quarters melee, a long range attack, or a magical attack. Um, and you roll a d3. So like on magic, if you get a crit on a magical attack, you roll a d3 and get a 1. Nothing to bury. The target liquefies into a black ooze. Yeah. Um, 3. Another spell did not use a spell slot. Okay. Wow. For weapons, there's like bleeding wounds, knocking creatures prone. On a natural 1, um, you know, you take double. This is when you're making a defensive roll because you roll your defense instead of the NPCs rolling an attack. The player takes double damage and their armor is reduced by 1 tier. And again, you have these um, mishaps that happen to you. Um, Your weapon, like if it's attack roll, your weapon breaks, or you drop your weapon. You hit yourself for D4 damage. You accidentally hit another character. If it's magic, you roll for a magical mishap, which is covered later. Uh, Interesting things here with the characters. Like I said, it's got the same four Mortborg ability scores, but you get more of a class and subclass. So you got like a mercenary deserter, um, which is the warrior type. Um, but then you pick from three options: a rifleman, a great swordsman, which looks rather like a Landsknecht. You start with flamboyant clothes, a Zweihander and flamboyant clothes, versus the rifleman starts with um, a musket and 10 rounds of shot and a gunpowder pouch. Um, and then you have a grenadier. You start with a bomb maker's kit. Then there's a bounty hunter. Um, and the three options there are pistolier, master trapper, or beast hunter. Then you have witch. Options are the woods witch, an herbalist, which deals more in like potions. And they looks very much like a plague doctor. They've got the plague doctor mask, and then the heron, which is Heren. Whether you made a pact with a demon or not, it matters not to those who have already made up their minds that you have. So this is much more of a. I think the woods witch can kind of get away as maybe just sort of being a wise woman out in the forest, but the heron is definitely the type of burn at the stake, you know, deal with the devil kind of witch. The opportunist comes with the adventurer, the sneak thief, or the silver tongued trickster. So you have kind of a bard-like character, more of a swashbuckler type character, or a thief, assassin type character. Then there's a practitioner. These are holy people. The vow of war, the vow of sustenance, the vow of healing. So you got some different. If you want to think of that as a one of them's more paladin-like, one of them's more cleric-like, and I guess this vow of sustenance is, maybe not your conventional type of cleric, but something kind of like a cleric. Um, there are optional character traits. There's a one party in the member. There's a table you can roll on if you need a if you just want to come up with it randomly. The artwork in there is really cool. Uh, Leveling up, which in regular Borg is called getting better. Um, some of your abilities improve. You get more instead of rolling a handful of dice to see if you get a hit point. You just get d6 more hit points. And then you get a feat when you level up, and they've got some that are kind of just general feat. Some are available only to witches. Rules on creating a free company and hiring mercenaries into your free company. How to, combat rules for detachment, um, which I think strikes me as similar to some of the stuff you see in Into the Odd. Um, and then there's kind of genre appropriate weapons as Vihander, the halberd, uh, things like that, and then black powder weapons as well as bows and crossbows, uh, armor, um, gear, wagons, magic, spells. There's some poisons and potions to go with that. Some rules for travel. Again, these are some of the things that maybe weren't. I don't think are complete necessarily in Mortborg. Some rules on rolling events during travel, rolling events trying to hunt for food, and then we have a game master section. There's some stuff in here that I won't read because it might spoil the game for anybody who wants to play in this setting. Because there's some hidden lore that the game masters can use to craft their adventures, and then there's a bunch of tables on how to create a random adventure, and some practical advice on to DMs on or GMs on how to craft a story. They kind of how to make it flow. Encouragement that you're there to create problems, but let the players come up with solutions. How to use the yes and no but to be flexible and keep the game flowing. Um, and Some time for violence. There's some examples of interesting fights. You had ambushes, choke points, fighting with within hazards. Say you're in like a burning building, but you're still having a duel with someone. The ticking clock, things like that. And here's another thing that comes in from Blades in the Dark: the countdown clock, using clocks. There's some adventure hook ideas, an NPC generator, like I said, adventure generator with some tables, how to generate rooms in a dungeon, some random names for inns, um, different types of magical treasures you can find. This is a good one. A scapegoat. It's a small, roughly wooden goat. It will absorb one magical mishap per day. Magical mishaps. So if you have a magical mishap, if a witch rolls a one on a spell check, you know, roll another d20, and then there's some magical mishaps, such as the spell has the opposite effect. Uh, if you roll a nine, you see all about tall, spindly figures about you. Only the mad and the damned can see them too. If they suspect you see them, they will attack. If you roll a 20, a bell tolls. At the time of rest, you will be approached by a charming and mysterious figure. They will challenge you to a game of chance. If you win, you get a free uh, DL. If you lose, they will snatch you away. So, wow. And then we've got a bestiary of sort of thematically appropriate types of creatures. Um, we've got mutants, we've got bandits, we've got mercenary companies and what their officers and infantrymen would be like. Um, Different types of Puritans, different types of agents of the Orthodox Church, inquisitors, uh, undead, night folk. Wow, there have been rumors even before the war of those who dwell in the forest. So these may be some sort of barbarians live way back in the woods. Cults, lost souls, a dryad, witch, actually greater devils and lesser demons. Wow, pretty cool. A bandersnatch, changeling, all kinds of cool stuff here. And so, yeah, it does have a lot of sort of gothic horror, along with some, I think what you call more Lovecraftian types of horror in here. The people affected by the pox, staggering pox, watchers, um, villains, friends, and adversaries. So here's some actual, like the judge. Um, these are famous NPCs, and they're kind of funny. The judge looks very much um, it's a great and favored judge. She will never die. It's kind of a neat character. Carmen Sandimaria, obviously a play on Carmen San Diego. She's even got the red hat with the white plume in it. Um, so Lord Flash. Uh, so yeah, some famous NPC figures you might find in the world. It's got a here we've got a sample starter adventure called, what is this thing called? The House of Pain and Loss. But I think the final thought. So they just give you these monsters, these uh, prominent NPCs. And then this final thought. Remember, there are islands of goodness and humanity worth defending amidst an ocean of monstrous darkness, fear, and hunger. So, this is a game where you can't actually play heroes, as dark and grim as it is, which makes me, again, think of something like, Warhammer Fantasy or The Witcher or Solomon Kane. So, interesting book. I might like to play it sometime, although I got a stack of other stuff that I want to get to. But let me know what you think. Is anybody else taking a look at this? Anybody played it? Anybody thumb through it? Anybody interested in it? I'd like to hear what people think of that. So I'll put a link to it in the show description as well. All right, that's it for today. I want to thank Carl again for his call. Be sure and check out his stuff, his podcast, and his YouTube channel. Uh, and I will got a busy couple weeks coming up, but I'll be back sooner or later with something else. Until then, wherever you are out there, take care of yourself and make someone happy today. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.